Please welcome to the stage Tonya Allen, President of the Skillman Foundation.
Good morning, everyone. So it's great to be back in Bilbao. I'm truly looking forward to reconnecting with everyone from last year, as well as meeting all of the new people who have joined us this year. The great thing about this conference is that we are a select few of people who can come together and to talk about the issues that are before us. But the great thing, in addition to that, is that we don't have to keep the conversation to ourselves, right? So we know that we have the hashtag for the conference, which is GMF Build. And so I would encourage you to use that. I also would encourage you to tweet me at Allen_Tonya. And if you want to use any hashtags that say something like, she's so cute, she's so smart, anything like that, complimentary, I will take it. So the great thing about the Build conference is that it really is an opportunity for a network of leaders to be connected and develop to help usher growth in a new frontier of innovation in our sectors, in our cities, and in our globe. So I'm really grateful for this opportunity to share my reflections from last year, my thoughts about how we can make our cities globally magnetic, and the leadership role that we must provide in the transformation and the allure of our cities. Magnetic cities possess an extraordinary power or ability to attract and hold the interests of its people and those throughout the world. They are the characteristics that allow others to recognize your city as an iconic place. Magnetic cities have dynamism and complexity. They have personality. They have quirks. They have deficits. They have assets. Sometimes they're funny, and sometimes they're not. Magnetic cities are global, but they're also embedded and they're entrenched in the places in which they exist. They're not limited by their geographies. They're actually enhanced by them. Technology makes magnetism of cities all the more important, in my opinion. As we all know, technology is a disruptor. It transcends borders and can be powerful, more powerful than any laws created by our councils, our legislators, or our congresses. Yet technology also makes us ever increasingly digital, disparate, and dehumanized in many ways. So thus the magnetism of a place allows people to feel anchored and connected in ways that they cannot through technology. Years ago, I heard the former mayor of Berlin who described the city as, we are poor, but we're sexy. Now, I like that because I think my whole first couple of decades in life, I would have described myself as that too. But this offhanded quip, in a lot of ways, helped transform my thinking about how you make cities magnetic and how you make them compelling places. So prior to this comment, I ascribed to the kind of general theory that most people thought about making your city global. You whitewash it. You take away all of the flaws. If there are any indentations, you want to take those away. You want to employ a particular formula to become globally important and significant. However, the mayor's commentary turns that notion upside down. He basically takes a city's deficit, the biggest deficit that they had, and turns it into an asset. He brags about it, and then he brands his city with it. That's what we have to do with magnetizing our cities. So I think when we think about this notion of we're poor but we're sexy and the themes of the Build Conference, I believe that there is some lessons learned from that we can use to challenge ourselves, challenge ourselves to become more globally oriented, not by perfecting our flaws, but by owning them and using them to attract global interest. So I'm going to wrestle with two or three ideas, although there are many, about how we can become global cities and magnetic cities, and how we as leaders can help facilitate or usher that into our hometowns. So the first I would say is magnetic cities are sticky. And they're compelling. Magnetic cities are enduring places. They have a story that attracts and draws you to them. They are places that define their own narratives, and they don't rely on others to tell it for them. They shape the narrative and the stories that the media tells. They shape the investment cases that the investors will give to. And they also shape the data that the researchers will publish. Their sticky quality is defined by their aspirations as well as their DNA. So you have to look at who you are as a city, define it, own it, claim it, and be bold with it. They look at what's special about themselves, and they turn those challenges into assets. In my hometown of Detroit, which I'll use as an example in a couple of points, blight and vacancy are often cited as one of our biggest challenges in the city. I think we have nearly a third of our land is empty or vacant, including buildings. And the story that you hear, depending on where you look in the media, there's a ton of kind of blight pornography that goes on about Detroit. And you think about what has been lost, what is missing, what is no longer there. But what if we were to redefine our story, redefine our narrative to say that Detroit is the only urban city in the world where you can actually get you can get cheap land and you can get it contiguously? What does that do for an investment frame if we start to think and describe and share our stories in different ways? Or if we look, Detroit has become known for its art scene. And the reason that it's become known for its art scene is because artists can see what is not before them. So we have a set of artists that are drawn locally and nationally who are coming to our city, and they're defining what the future will look like. They are creating visions that will help us. Or we have another company in our community called Shinola, which is a watch manufacturer, and they also produce other contemporary luxury goods. And what we are basically doing with the narrative of a Shinola company is that we're changing the way that people view our city as a manufacturing hub. It's a passion brand. What we're trying to define is how you define what a contemporary manufacturing society looks like. The second point that I want to make is that magnetic cities are indiscriminating. They're inclusive and they're welcoming. So I know that you all talked a lot about this yesterday, but essentially magnetic cities take all that are drawn to them. They also embrace those that already live there, who exist there in their communities. Magnetizing your city by inviting others to it, especially migrants or immigrants, is economically and socially beneficial. We all know that. The data tells us that in lots of different ways. We know that research tells us that if you actually increase both skilled and unskilled immigration or migration into your community, that all city dwellers' wages increase. And so we know this, yet we're afraid of change and we're not embracing it. And I believe, just like many of you, that migration improves every city's talent dividend. However, most cities ignore the untapped talent that exists within their cities. In particular, in America, most cities ignore their poor. They ignore, generally, the Black and the brown people in those communities. In Europe, it is very easy for many people to ignore the Syrian migrants or refugees who are coming to their communities. But I would challenge us, instead of treating the poor solely as challenges, what if we thought of them as emerging markets? If they were emerging markets, how would we invest differently? How would we use inspired communication to describe what the possibilities and the potentials are, and how they can create the economic platform or grow our economic platform as cities? What would it look like if we awaken the vitality and the idealism of the poor and our migrants, integrating them and their entrepreneurial energy into our communities to make us more globally magnetic? Magnetic cities understand that you embrace and that you enhance talent, regardless of where it originates. We have to align our national and our local policies to integrate these people into our economic ecosystems. But let's be clear, national policies don't make places global. Cities decide if they are global. They set the policy, they set the practices, they set the investments that create an economic ecosystem that is attractive to all. A major theme of the conference, as you know, is diversity and inclusion, which is critical to having an undiscriminating place and building a talent-rich societies. We know that we have to increase diversity. We know that diversity by itself makes us smarter, better, more efficient, more creative. But one of the things that we have to do as we think about diversity is we have to own this really simple concept. Diversity is when you count the people, but inclusion is when the people count. And we have to figure out ways to make sure that all those who are in our communities who are currently disconnected, those who are coming to our communities who've never been traditionally connected, are connecting in a way and governance and economic systems that will allow them to be included, that will allow them to shape and reshape who we are and to create the future in which we're going to move forward. 3 ways that I think that cities can enhance the inclusion of all its residents are this. It's simply, we have to invest in our education system to ensure that our education is aligned with our business and economic needs. Second, we have to invest in entrepreneurs, high growth and community-based businesses that increase the social and the emotional wealth of community. I think a lot of times when we talk about global, we start to expand our vision to think about the world. But globally significant cities are significant because they're locally significant to the people who live there. Lastly, we have to benchmark ourselves as cities based on equitable growth and shared prosperity. And then the last point that I want to lift up about being a magnetic city is that you have to align forces if you're going to be magnetic. We must see people who are willing to do really hard things. Magnetic cities need a legion of them. We need people who are willing to do really hard things. Now, I know that's not a controversial statement, but I think we don't often think about the weight of the talent that we need to really transform ourselves. And we need that talent in every sector of our society, in public, civic, and corporate. We need to put help wanted signs outside of our cities that basically say visionaries, not ordinaries, are wanted here. Magnetic cities welcome these people if they're different from you. We need people who are laborers, but we need warriors as well as inventors. We need leaders who are committed to low ego and high impact. We need leaders who do not operate out of fear-based leadership, but rather out of courageous leadership. We need those leaders that when they see an idea that is presented before them, and it's really, really scary, that when you get that little tingle in your stomach, that they will say yes, and not no, and not be scared. We need people who see the potential of magnetic cities, those who look at data, and they don't use the data to define themselves. They actually use the data to inform themselves on new directions as well as new possibilities. In Detroit, I think we have 2 examples of people who have, or incidents where people are attempting to align forces to increase the magnetism of our city. One, I think many of you have heard about, and I won't spend a great deal of time, but it was what we call in Detroit the grand bargain, where basically philanthropic institutions and our state put up upward of a couple $1 billion to help Detroit move through the quickest municipal bankruptcy in the world. And one of the things that was amazing about that was that philanthropy gave over $500 million to an issue that they would not normally do. But part of the reason that we did this in our community was because we did not want our community to suffer for a long time. And so there are lots of criticisms that have come along with that. But I think it is an important effort or an important show of how you align forces and how you exert leadership. The second is an example that I know none of you know anything about, which is an effort to actually realign our public school system in Detroit. And it's called the Coalition for the Future of Detroit School Children. I'm not going to go in the particulars of this incident of this effort, but what I do want to do is to share with you a core value of what we've used to be able to bring a set of very disparate partners together. And that's what we call the 70-20-10 formula. And it's basically this. We know that when there are really tough issues that are existing in your community, and most people are disagreeing on them. Most people may even be fighting against each other on these issues. And there is no issue that is more political than education. That what we ought to do is, instead of starting at a place where we disagree, which is 10% of the issues, that we actually need to reflip the formula. That we could probably agree on 70% of whatever that we're talking about in terms of issues related to developing young people to be economically connected. 20% we're likely to disagree on. But if we work hard enough at it, we can come to some negotiation and find some an agreement. And then that last 10%, as I said, are places we will never agree on. But in communities, what we usually do is start at the 10, and we never make it to 20, and we never make it to 30, and we never make it to 100. In our community, we're deciding we're going to start to 70 and see how close we can get to 90%, because if we don't do that, we will be globally irrelevant. So I hope that my remarks provided some scene setting for our discussion. I'm really excited about the panel that we're going to have, that we'll discuss these ideas and so many more. But I hope that that my comments have also challenged you to test these ideas and to think about how you make your cities magnetize, what you can do as a leader, a global leader in your city, in your particular location, in your particular place, to create new ideas, to create the vibrancy that makes you sticky, that makes you undiscriminating and welcoming, and that makes you powerfully able to solve the most difficult challenges in your community. Thank you.